Wow, guys, when they invited me to come here and speak, I was thinking a little room because I spoke at many small events. There's one company that shipped me off to New York and I spoke in front of several hundred people, and that was intimidating, but wow, my first MD Expo and the room is absolutely full. If you guys take a look around this room, you're gonna see that we have a lot of younger people, we have a lot of senior people, we have quite the mix in this room, which we have the mentors and we have the mentees. And because of that, I myself, I'm a 20-year biomed as of last month. I did 10 years in the military, and then when I got out of the military, I had mentors, regular mentors that made sure that I succeeded. And in doing so, they gave me spots of wisdom. And it's old sayings and stuff that are like ethics that you follow through your day-to-day processes that make you more successful. And I realized that without mentors, a lot of those guidelines I never would have had. So because of that, I started writing them down and I started following them. And one of my mentors, actually he couldn't be here at this moment, Louis Rossman, he's downstairs. We were doing a web show earlier. He's got like 2 million followers. He does videos on board repairs and stuff. And he was the one that taught me a lot about electronics. I'd spent almost every one of my lunch times going on there, learning about power rails and about DC power supplies and stuff like that. And he's one of my mentors, and he's here today with me. And it's one of those amazing things in this industry. But some of my mentors are not with me anymore. One of my mentors, his name is Tony Farmer, awesome dude, very smart, and he's no longer with us. But his knowledge is carrying on. You're gonna see some of it here today, all right? So the basis of every single skilled trade out there is the passage of knowledge from mentors to mentees. And I just started cataloging it. These are not my rules. Most of them are just ones that I collected from other people over time. So with that, we have the rules of repair. I'm gonna start with rule number 1. Normally, you start with rule number 10, right? You work your way up to the most important. I'm gonna start with the most important. We're gonna go rule number 1, because this is the one rule that can get you killed. Never ever trust somebody else's troubleshooting. Always start at ground zero. More technicians have been burned by this than almost any other rule. Somebody says, no, I researched that, or no, I locked out that circuit breaker. Now, if somebody says they locked out a circuit breaker, are you just gonna go and start handling wires? No, of course not. You should go and you should observe that it's locked out. And also, I don't know about you guys, I carry something that they call a chicken stick. It's a little fluke device that detects an AC sine wave. You can go up there and fish around and see if any of those circuits are live, even though they said they're not. Who's gonna trust them, right? You never know what you're gonna find when you start doing your own research, even when somebody says something locked out. Is that locked out? It is to some people, right? This guy probably thought that that was locked out. That looks like, what, 440? That's main service. That looked like it hurt. Looks like that guy, well, I don't know, hopefully he made it, right? And even as low as 220, right? It's the amps that'll kill you, it's not the volts. Nonetheless, this guy definitely had a bad day. Should always make sure that things are locked out. Verify yourself before you get involved in a situation. That involves steam, that involves electricity, it involves anything. But even more so, you should also remember that when you go in to approach a situation, if that person knew how to solve the problem, you wouldn't be needed, right? So if you walk into a situation where they don't know what's going on, you're going in to troubleshoot, everybody knows the KISS principle, right? Keep it simple. Start at ground one. How many times have you guys walked into a room and the device was unplugged? They're sitting there, they're fishing around with it, everybody's angry. Come to find out the device is unplugged. Happens very common. Keep it simple. Never trust somebody else's troubleshooting. I can't tell you how many times a nurse or doctor has told me I've tried everything. Well, if you tried everything, why'd you call me? I mean, that's just the way it is. So remember, guys, start at ground zero every single time. Never, ever trust somebody else's troubleshooting. Keep it simple, right? Rule number 2. A lot of people have problems with this one. Band-Aid fixes always come back, right? What's a Band-Aid fix? There's lots of definitions for a Band-Aid fix. Electrical tape. Electrical tape is a Band-Aid fix. I don't care who you are. I will argue that any single day. Electrical tape shouldn't even be in your toolbox. Electrical tape, not only is it an infection control hazard, it creates a messy surface. It's going to fall off. It can contaminate a surgical site or wherever else you are. It is not a professional fix. It looks horrible. If that wire has exposed conductor, should it be in service? Not at all. Electrical tape, why do we have it? I mean, maybe if you're tying something up or something, but really, it's not one of those things that you should have. Electrical tape is a Band-Aid fix. Other Band-Aid fixes. Tightening up a fastener. Guys, if you walk by something and you see that something's loose and you just grab a screwdriver and you tighten it down, that's a Band-Aid fix. It came loose for a reason, right? Maybe you should try some Loctite. Maybe it's missing a lock washer. There's lots of reasons, but I guarantee when he screws that drawer back in, it's only got a couple months and it's gonna come back loose and it's gonna tear a bigger hole. That's how Band-Aid fixes work. You always start out small and it seems like it's a good idea because it's a quick fix, but they always come back. Band-Aid fixes always come back. If you have a battery that you're charging up because it had a low bat, but come to find out, you charge it up, the error goes away magically. The problem is, when batteries go excessively low, it damages the cells internally. They'll never be the same. Properly, if you detect low to no voltage on a battery, you should probably just replace the battery, just outright. Because in other words, it's a Band-Aid fix. You're just charging it up to get it out the door and make somebody happy. They're not gonna be happy again. Rule number 3, if it happens to one, it'll happen to more. So this is where we define between a proactive and a reactive maintenance program. So a reactive maintenance program is when you don't do sweeps and you wait for the work orders to come to you. If you detect a problem on one device, something coming loose, connectors getting hot and starting to get fried, if you detect, I don't know, maybe a tube is going prematurely worn and it blows out. If it's happening to one, it's happening to more. It's almost a promise. You should pull a certain section of your fleet and detect and see if the problem's happening on those devices as well. That's when you convert over to a proactive approach. You're gonna decrease the amount of demand work orders, and at the same time, you're gonna increase your uptime and your satisfaction in your patients. You're gonna find out, also, I specifically chose this because if you have a caster that's wore out, maybe the rubber is starting to degrade, you change out one caster? You should never change out one caster. You should always change them out in pairs or in quads, because if it's happening to one, it's gonna happen to more. If things like rubber are degrading, it's happening to the other ones. You just can't see it yet. Furthermore, if you have like a fleet of stretchers that were all purchased at the same time, it's probably happening to all of them. Keep some parts on hand. It's gonna happen, right? This is a pretty big one that a lot of people just can't seem to get past. A lot of people, I don't know if it's a lazy approach or what, but they like to wait for the work orders to come to them. I like to go out and do regular sweeps throughout my departments. And this is part of the tool that I use for my sweeps. Because if you see something like a yanked power cord, well, if you see a yanked power cord in a department, why did it happen, right? One of the reasons it probably happened is because staff is abusing their equipment. If they're yanking a cord on one, they're probably yanking it on other ones. So rule number 3, if it happens to one, it happens to more. This is a unit that was contaminated. There's multiple units that were contaminated. If I would have stopped at the first one, we wouldn't have identified a systemic problem. It's happening to one, it's happening to more. There you can see some of the contamination that was happening when we started doing a deep dive. If you ever notice a problem, or even let's say the staff is not upholding their end of the bargain when it comes to user maintenance, if they're doing it to one device, check, because it's probably a systemic issue. It's happening everywhere else. Rule number 4. So a lot of people, we're pressed for time. We don't want to explore a problem when we identify it. We just want to solve the problem and get done with it. Rule number 4 says that if you have the time, you should always investigate a problem and discover the nature of why it's happening. Because if you don't understand why it's happening, how do you prevent it from happening in other devices? It could be a user error. It could be that you got premature failure of parts. It could be that you're using incorrect consumables. It could be lots of things. But you should always use that time when possible to stop explore what's going on, and figure out what really caused the problem. That's the difference between a junior biomed and a senior biomed. Is a senior biomed should be out there exploring why something happens. Oh, we know it broke. You can see it. But why? Why did it break? Stop the problems. So I do exploratory teardowns of stuff on YouTube. I do quite a bit of stuff. And when I do the teardowns, I want to explore why did it happen. This here, I had no idea what was going on with this unit. I opened it up, I started doing an exploration, come to find out the staff wasn't using correct filters, and what they were doing is they were sucking biological material up inside the pump. It's a suction unit, compact suction unit. The pump and no suction unit is designed to handle biological material or fluids. But there it is. And we caused premature failure in this device, and then we opened up other ones. Come to find out, it was a bigger problem. It's a problem because what they're doing is they're equipping these on their service carts, their crash carts, and nobody was trained on proper setup of the filtration system or the water separators. Because of that, they had to replace their fleet. It's amazing. Some of the other things I do is I explore why things happen with treadmills. Treadmills are a device that really doesn't move around that much. Why does it fail? Improper PMs. Your power supplies, your motors, they require cooling, they require airflow. Your belt requires lubrication. And come to find out, when you have a failure on a device that doesn't normally fail, you just stop for a moment and do a deep dive, see why it's happening, and try and implement it throughout your entire program to see what's going on. Now, I do lots of these live teardowns, and I do it because I get devices, I have no idea what's wrong with them, like you guys always do. We get stickers that say broke, right? Well, when these devices fail, I tear them down live on the air. And I do that because people can see the process. There's a process that every single one of you has for troubleshooting, and I can't teach that process to you. I can teach you theory, I can teach you maybe why it failed, but the process to find the failure, I can't teach that. Normal skilled trades have like a journeyman system. And with a journeyman system, you accompany somebody and you see their process and you explore that. So I started doing these videos where I just openly tear up items that were broke. Sometimes I found them on the side of the road, you know, it's all sorts of stuff. But it's the process of figuring out what the problem is and trying to resolve it live. This particular one, it was a flyback diode that went bad, and flyback diode means when the motor shuts off instantly and the belt's still running, that electricity has to go somewhere. So what it does is it allows the voltage to reverse back into the power supply and without damaging things. So that was the problem on that particular one. It's always fun to do live teardowns. Things always go wrong. And when things go wrong, people can also see how you deal with it. I used to be one of those techs that used to get angry and throw your tools around the floor and stuff. But not since I started with medical equipment. That was back when I repaired cars. Medical equipment is one of those things where the calmer you are, the better you are, right? I had 19 years in operating rooms. And one of the things I noticed is your cardiologist, your neurologist, the people that actually keep you alive are some of the calmest doctors you'll ever meet. It's wild. The guy that was always pissed off and throwing his tools around the room was a cystologist. Swear to God. The guy that, you know, works on your urinary tract is the guy that would get so upset. But the cardiologist is the calmest dude. Everything's going wrong, he'd stay calm. I learned a lot from some of those doctors. But anyway, take the time, discover the problem. This one here is another teardown I did live on the air for a neuro monitor, NIM 3.0. Didn't know what was going on. Come to find out, right down here in the corner, they had a CR2032 battery soldered into the board that instantly puts a life expectancy on your product. Because once you lose your date and time on your device and it no longer keeps that, well, then your file system and other things get really wonky real quick. That means that this device only has 5 to 8 years and it's done, your entire fleet of them. Wouldn't have known that except I took the time to tear one of them apart, discover that it had a hard soldered component, which you can buy very easily, and you can replace it, preferably before it really goes bad. But it's one of those things, take the time, figure out what's really going wrong. And because of that, I was able to quote out battery replacement on a bunch of different devices, and we prevented problems in many different devices. Go ahead. So this one here, okay, does it have a laser? Okay, this right here, I thought was a soldered in battery. I shouldn't have said that. I thought it was. It's a socketed battery. It really is. But you can buy that battery for $3 and some odd cents. Go figure. But it stopped the Windows errors that were happening in the NIM. Yeah. So I thought it was socketed because it did have through hole, and I thought that the solder pockets were just underneath the battery. Come to find out, I pried on it just a little bit and it popped right out. It's crazy. But you can tell it's buried inside the device. So you've got a, what, they were $60,000 to $80,000 for a neural monitor when they came out. And here you have an entire fleet of them that could go down. Hope you budgeted for replacements. Rule number 5. Oh, this is such a good one. If you touch it, you own it. What does that mean? It means if you go into an area and you touch anything in a patient environment, anything on a device, you'll be blamed for anything else that happens in that room. It's going to happen, guaranteed. And that's not a negative thing. It's a proactive thing on your part, because you should be aware that there's the potential for that to happen. Because when you go into a room, if you get binocular vision and you go straight to the problem, you fix the problem and you leave, did you ignore the fact that there's an electrical hazard on the floor? Did you ignore the fact that, you know, the patient bedside rail is falling off? So if you touch it, you own it. You should inspect everything in the vicinity when you walk into a room. And before you leave, do a final check on everything. Even though you went for one problem and you resolved that problem, you should still check out everything, because they will blame it on you. And that's a promise. And it's a hard lesson that a lot of people have had to learn. So just be proactive, and plus you're increasing patient safety. Just check everything in the room before you leave, and then write it in your report. Rule number 6, if you don't know the answer, find a different source. A lot of people fail on this one. They say, I wasn't trained on that, or I didn't know about that, or they'll make a really dumb decision. Now, I'm pretty sure the guy that I'm going to reference isn't in this room, but I had one technician that worked for me, and he was going to connect a battery to a board, and it was one of those terminals where it was just straight pegs coming out of the board, and he had a 50-50 shot of plugging it in correctly, right? Now, what he should have done is did a continuity check between one of the pins and the ground plane of the board, because that would have told you what your negative is. He didn't. And he was going to plug it in. I told him, don't do it. He did it anyway. I told him he had a 50-50 shot. And what do you think happened? Caught on fire. Caught on fire, because when you start trying to charge a battery in reverse, it doesn't go so well. But from then on, I called him 50-50 Dave. So whenever somebody would say, hey, like, can anybody do it? I'd say, go ask 50-50. He'll go do it. If you don't know, consult another source of information. And we have more information available to us now than ever before. And that's one of the things that I've been trying to encourage throughout the entire community, is people to get involved with social media. If there's forums and people ask questions, if you're a subject matter expert, get out there and answer some of those questions, because that knowledge is preserved forever. You have other technicians, you have YouTube videos, you have lots of PDFs. I don't know if you guys know, but like ifixit.com has been creating a catalog of user manuals and service manuals. Great resource. But don't be afraid to go out and ask other people or senior level techs before you do something stupid. All right, people get burned on this one quite often. Oh my gosh. Yeah, we don't have to. I was just referencing some of the questions that other people are asking online. There are a variety of resources, like I was saying. Here is, I think this is MedWrench, yep. And you can see that there are people that are replying to things. MedWrench, there's a little bit of a delay in the time that people ask a question when they get an answer. If you guys don't know about Discord, Discord is like a live chat where there are thousands of people now on there, and there are people that are very knowledgeable who can answer your questions instantly. It's awesome. I also use LinkedIn quite often. A lot of you guys probably know me from there. but use your resources. And there's some real smart dudes out there. Rule number 7, image is everything. It's all you have. Doesn't matter what your piece of paper is. Your image is your credibility in any repair career field. It's kind of crazy how that works, because you could fix 100 items, do a perfect job, and then you mess up once. What are they going to remember? It's not the 100 times that you did, something right, that's for sure. Unfortunately, your image is all that you have, and we are a small career field. If you do something really wrong, other people are going to find out about it. Just be knowledgeable about that. We are a very small network. I know that there's certain questions that people shouldn't be asking and whatnot when you're interviewing people, but we talk. We know. And if somebody has a bad rep, it follows them. I know people that have been blackballed from entire cities. So just be aware, your image is only as good as your last repair. Rule number 8, you guys have probably heard this one. It's pretty common. I think my grandfather said this often enough, probably to me. If you don't have time to do it right the first time, you'll have plenty of time to do it right the second time. Boy, isn't that true? The second time isn't going to be as easy either, because now you're going to have a pissed off user. Maybe somebody got injured, maybe you got a legal case, who knows? If you didn't have time to do it right the first time, hopefully you'll have time to do it right the second time. You never know. It's kind of wild. Number 9, eliminate the predictable failures, because the unpredictable are still going to happen. Now, I wrote this one when it came to inspections, but it means so much more. Right before an inspection, there's what? Hustle and bustle. People are running around, they're going crazy. They're trying to solve problems that should have been solved, because you have regulations, you have rules and policies that govern everything that we do. Why is it that we're running around with our heads cut off, like trying to solve these problems? See, the thing about inspections is no matter how good you are, your inspector is still going to find something on you, right? No matter what. It might be something stupid, it might be something small, it's something you didn't think about though. So why not solve all the problems for the things that you can think about? One of the things you can do is sweeps. Again, I'm a big proponent of sweeps, going out and checking, let's say, equipment stickers. Something as small as equipment stickers. How many times have people been written up because of different color, 2, 3 years past expired PM stickers on equipment? That's what the inspector is looking for, because it's a low-hanging fruit, right? Well, if you know that that's a low-hanging fruit, why wasn't it solved before you got inspected? But that's one of the areas where people just constantly fail. If it's something that you can predict, you should try and solve it, because the other stuff that you can't predict, it's still going to happen. So you're just taking a smaller hit. Meanwhile, you're probably making your medical equipment program a little bit better. You can see on these ones right here, man, some of these rules you're going to find are going to tie completely together. You start seeing stuff like this, where you got a power supply, I don't know, maybe it's degradation of the rubber, maybe it's because it's too old, maybe it's in an incorrect environment, maybe it's because the staff abuses it. If it's happening to one, it's happening to others, right? Maybe you should check some more. At the same time, you can look at both these instances, and I can tell you that both those parts are going to fail prematurely. It's easy, you can see it. Just a lot of people don't take the time to go and do the right thing when they see it. Now, if you've seen something like this, you open up one of your central monitoring computers. Kind of easy, right? Everybody knows you should be vacuuming them out. You can go into almost any hospital and find one that's just like this. It's true, but it's a predictable failure, right? You know it's going to fail if it overheats. It should be on a PM, is it? I don't know. Sometimes it's not. But it's just one of those things. You can predict it. You know it can happen. Central monitoring has enough conflicts. There's enough other moving parts in the machine that can fail. Why contribute? It's something that we can predict. We can solve it before it becomes a real issue. Reduce costs and downtime, that's for sure. Rule number 10, this is a big one. Sometimes the only thing that's broke is the user. right? It's true. I mean, how many, if you think about it, I would easily say 90% of the broken equipment that I've seen is because of the user. In one way or the other. Either they did something wrong, either it was negligence, abuse, anything. But you have to remember that we fix people too, which means that we also have a major role in making sure that that stuff doesn't happen. One of the ways that you can do it is you can offer training. You get out there and you see a problem with negligence or abuse, try to retrain your users and document that you did so. It's one of our core responsibilities, and I know a lot of biomeds, they really don't like to get up in front of people, they don't like to speak or anything, but I think they fail to realize that as you move up the ladder, as you get better at your job, you're expected to do more things. One of the things you're expected to do is be a member of the community and teach people. You teach your junior biomeds, sometimes they mess up. You teach your staff, because maybe your med staff isn't using the device correctly. There's a lot of reasons, but sometimes the only thing that's wrong is the person. We fix people too. It's true. All right, guys. I know that was a short and sweet briefing.